And good morning, everybody. We are live. Congratulations. You made it through the week. Another week of high quality foods, awesome yumminess, food safety taken care of. And if nobody else says it, Cara and I are going to let you know right now that we're proud of what you've done this week. We want to say thanks because we also eat the food that you manufacture and we love that we can do that. If you're new to the chat, welcome. Pull up a chair. Join us for about an hour of food safety conversation. My name is Bryan Armentrout, and I'm with the Food Leadership Group. And every week at this time, so 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, we do a live stream. And I bring on an amazing guest to talk about a food safety topic. And this week, I'm always happy if you're a veteran of the chat and you come here quite a bit, you're always happy when Cara's here. So Cara Mikkelson with ChemStation. Cara, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Bryan? It's a pleasure to be here as usual.
Oh, absolutely. So what you'll notice about this and what we enjoy about this and what Cara is so good at is this is an interaction. This is a discussion. This is not meant to be a presentation or a lecture where we're doing this and telling you what you have to do and the shalls and the shoulds. No, this is meant to share information for food safety because food safety is not a point of competition. We're all in this together. So one of the things that we love to do on the chat before we get started here is we plug in where in the world you are listening. And I say world because that's definitely the case. We get people from all over the planet who join us for the chat. So I am in Loveland, Colorado. Where are you at today, Cara?
So today I am not home. I'm actually at my folks' house in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, which is actually a little known, well, it's kind of a big known fact. We're actually called the Maui of the Midwest. So it's
Really?
it's right on Lake Michigan, and there's a lot of surfing that happens on Lake Michigan at our the way that the shoreline lines up. It's called the Maui of the Midwest.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's super cool.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. I love the, so it looks like your parents have a picture of the stadium there in the
course,
background.
the Packers stadium, they have season tickets. So it's a
big
deal. Oh, yes, for the last 20, 30 years. So, yeah.
I've read that people will actually put these seats in their wills and pass them down in their families.
It's been willed to my brother and I, so it's in the will.
That's crazy. I love it. Well, here in Colorado, so it's March, which is a crazy time of year here in Colorado. Believe it or not, this is when we get our most snow in Colorado, is the month of March. So you think you're coming out of winter, you're like, it's the 60s, this is nice, and you're out doing yard work. And then you get like we have out here today, which is a lot of snow. And it snowed for at least 24 hours straight. And of course, this time of year, it's not your typical fluffy, fun skiing snow. It's the wet, heavy, oh my God, I'm going to throw my back out when I scoop this snow. So hopefully it'll melt. But I mean, that's the other side of it too. It'll be in the 40s today. It'll be back to the 60s in I think like 2 days. So, it's great for the plants.
There's no longevity to it. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with the chat, one of the things that we always do here, everyone, is please join Cara and I for a drink of your favorite beverage. Cheers.
Cheers.
Very nice. So one of the things that's very true with the weather and stuff like this is it doesn't really help to complain.
Nice segue. I love it.
Thank you. I've been working on that. So our topic for today is an interesting one. It's consumer complaints and customer complaints, Cara. And a lot of times when you work in quality, you get the complaints and you view it as, now I got to investigate and I got to get back to an angry consumer. And I've got other things to do. But that is absolutely the wrong attitude because those complaints are extremely important to your business.
Oh, they identify trends, right? Mm-hmm. And they can potentially identify changing your food safety plan, changing your HACCP plan. All those can play into those complaints. And of course, none of us like to have those criticisms, right? But they're really there to help you many times.
Yeah. And with those, I think part of this, Cara, as well as we get started here on our chat today, and Good morning, Cortland. Yeah, the mountains when you get the snow like this are absolutely beautiful. I agree. So, as Jose would say, right, we need to define our terms and our standards and these type of things. And that's what's really cool about the chat is with our experts that we have on the chat. These lessons, right? Repetition is really important for learning things. And Jose is very good at that. Of okay, here's what the CFR says. Here's what these standards say. Here's how you need to interpret these things. And you always need to start with that. And one of those is definitions. So with that, Carl, what is a complaint and what type of complaints are there?
There, in my experience, and there's several different kinds of complaints, right? And you were talking about there's the consumer complaints, which is usually what we tie to the actual end user, right? Our actual, like I told you the story about my mom 25 years ago, opened a container of sour cream and it was moldy, and she's not bought that sour cream since then, right? So there's those types of quality complaints. So the people, in fact, I just had a friend that opened a bag of green beans and there was a piece of wood in it. Now I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where that came. But again, so it's not going to necessarily hurt you, right, or harm you. But it could be, it's a nuisance. And then, we have the safety complaints, obviously, where we have, potentially like the metal in the product and things like that. So, our end user, but then we also have the customer. So our customers, so if we're manufacturing ingredients and things like that to the customer, we might get complaints from those end users, essentially, that will play into our programs and understanding what our process is like.
Yeah, and I held up my coffee because consumers consume, right? They're the end of the chain. And so a good way to think about that is if you're a food manufacturer, you send your product and you deliver it to a grocery store. So Kroger or Walmart, they're the customer. Then they sell to the consumers. And you need to think about those complaints in those two different buckets because they're two very different channels for resolution. The retailer is going to want a much more detailed response from you. Hey, we received in this pallet of stuff from your distribution logistics and they were damaged. We want a corrective action plan and we want an investigation and we want a conference call where we're going to beat you up for an hour over why these things didn't work. And generally in those type of things, it's much more detailed. And you need to understand through your entire supply chain who those people are. Now, it also works the other way. So as a manufacturer, if I'm making coffee and I got my nice foamy milk on top of it, if I'm making these products, I have suppliers who are supplying me. And I am their customer, right? So now if I have a problem as a manufacturer and I'm making dairy products, I get to complain at them and then they have to respond back to me. And so the chain kind of continues.
Exactly, right? Exactly. Yep. And it's important to understand where they fall in the process because it's going to, then you're going to be able to respond appropriately, right? To that action.
Exactly. And you brought up a good point. And good morning, John Henry and Austin. Good to see everybody. Hope Austin's here in the Denver area. So he was probably digging out here this morning as well. So with these type of complaints, it's very important. And you mentioned this, Carl, and I don't want to gloss over this, is there's two main buckets of complaints. And you need to make sure that your processes and procedures in your company are set up for these two different types. And that's quality complaints and food safety complaints. So what are the difference between those two?
Well, and just like that example that I gave with the mold on top of the sour cream, that's a good example of a quality complaint, right? That it's going to be something that your consumer is going to look and be like, wow, is it going to harm them? Probably not, right? It's a yuck factor, right? But when we get into the complaints where your people are getting ill from your product, that's going to be that safety complaint potentially, right? Depending on your analysis and your root cause, that could be that more safety type of complaint. And again, you're going to respond, and not that you're not going to respond to a quality complaint. Certainly, there's going to be procedures for that. But those safety complaints need to be highly investigated, right? And
Right.
pulled in the appropriate level of expertise on those.
Right. And that's a good point, Cara, because your quality complaints, they can escalate if you have a big enough issue. And you do not want to treat your quality complaints frivolously. So if your mom contacts the sour cream company and says, hey, there's all this freaking mold, what are you people doing, right? And you go back and go, that's just quality. Here's a coupon. Quit your whining, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah. Right. That's really, really bad. And how long ago did that issue happen?
25 years ago.
25 years. Right?
Never bought that since.
That stuff, right? And she goes to church and says, "Hey, don't buy this brand of sour cream because I opened it up and it was gross." Yeah. And somebody else would say, "Oh yeah, I saw that too." And all of a sudden, sales start going down, and you have no idea why.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I know we're going to move into a lot of examples and things, but there was an example of a manufacturer with a cereal company that had a large recall with metal. And now that's, a little bit beyond, more of a safety potential issue, but their CEO in their end of the year, their annual report said, the brand damage was way more than the recall. Right. It took them years to recover from that brand damage. So, right. Well, and that's the mold. I mean, if that gets, and especially now with social media and things, that could elevate and escalate, and the brand damage is really going to be devastating to your revenue, right?
Oh yeah, it is so easy now for somebody with a phone. So it used to be you found something you didn't like, you would email the company, they would respond back, they would, apologize and send you, like I said, a coupon or something like this. Now it's this, right? So the phone comes out and it's like, hey, everybody, I'm Bryan. I'm here in the grocery store and look at this disgusting, gross stuff on the shelf. And now 1 million people see it immediately. Yeah. And sometimes too, we find out after these type of events happen that it may have been faked or staged. This person wants attention, or they're a scammer who wants money, or
they want coupons. They want coupons, or there's some kind of financial gain. So yeah, absolutely.
Behind the scenes on that, there used to be services for large companies who would manage complaints. You could subscribe to databases, and these databases would track people who would do that. So their whole purpose in life was to scam. So they would say, hey, I got this coffee and there was a bunch of metal in it or whatever. I'm going to sue you guys, or I chipped my tooth, or these type of things. And you could check this database and say, oh, Carl Mikkelson, she's filed 10 complaints against 10 different companies for the exact same thing. Boy, she's got a lot of teeth. Right? So the insurance company could go back, and because that's how it works behind the scenes too, right? You have insurance for these type of things.
Yep, absolutely.
And do an investigation. Well, I found out a few years ago that companies are not allowed to do that anymore.
I suppose. Yeah, that does make sense.
The other big category for headlines that caught all of our attention recently is the complaints internally. So whistleblowers. There was this big issue with a food distribution and warehousing outfit in the South for Family Dollar, and there was a worker who was talking with his boss and say, hey, listen, we got a problem. We have these rats and things like this in the warehouse, and they're getting into stuff, and this is terrible. We need to take care of this. They didn't address his concerns. So what did he do? And you can find these videos on YouTube. He got out his phone and took video showing people, oh my God, look at this warehouse. Look at this rat. Look what he's doing. Look, right? And showing this video.
Yeah.
That immediately escalated to FDA, and they shut it down and cleaned it up. Why? Why let it get to that point? I saw a couple days ago, Cara, where the fine came out for this company, $41.6 million fine.
Yeah, and that's a lot of Dollar Tree product to cover that, you know?
Yeah,
That's a significant chunk of money.
I also, yeah, and I read that they're closing down locations as well. 1,000
I just
locations,
read that too. Yeah, I
right?
just read that too.
And that video on YouTube is never going away.
No.
It's going to be there forever. And the company is going to have to continue explaining that, and they are going to be punished for a long, long time if they survive this issue.
Exactly. Yep. And that's one of the big things, right? And that's where brand damage in and of itself can be so devastating. It can shut companies down. It can
Right.
absolutely shut, and it doesn't have, we think of the pathogen recalls and things like that, and the outbreaks that are associated. And obviously those are going to have significant or some really harmful effects to companies, but quality can too. And that, any kind of brand damage like that. And yeah, I was reading about that Family Dollar, and I just thought that, I commend the person although maybe the mode was not right, but he or she was trying to do the right thing in just, escalating the issue to try and call attention to it, because that isn't, it's just not the right thing to do.
Right.
So,
And I believe too, Cara, that person was fired after they did that.
yeah.
And that's a heroic thing to do for someone. They're putting their livelihood at risk. They have a family that need, a lot of times it's easy to just kind of go, okay, I need this job. I'm not gonna look.
Right.
But part of, and again, we talk about this on the chat too, is what we do is far more than creating systems and audits and whatever else. What we do is moral. We are doing the right thing. And that mode of thinking is very prevalent in what we do. And unfortunately, it's kind of what we talk about here at the beginning of the chat. If nobody says thank you, we will, because a lot of times what we do in food safety and quality assurance goes unseen because we're preventing things from happening. We want to keep it from getting to the point where the complaints are going like this, which means you need to have really good systems and little things out there that you can monitor that will tell you as quickly as possible if you have a problem.
Exactly. And I know too, we were talking whistleblower, and I believe we were going to talk whistleblower, but with the infant formula outbreak that happened a few years ago now with Coronabacter sakazakii, that was a whistleblower also that was contacting FDA, contacting internally. And the thing that I don't think people realize, or maybe not, that we know we're in food safety, but I actually, my son was born 3 months premature and was in the NICU, and there was actually a Coronabacter outbreak at that time. Now, at the time, they didn't realize that that's what it was, because it was 25 years ago almost, and so it wasn't necessarily recognized. But when I read that whistleblower's accounts, and they were saying that when the FDA came in and they didn't find things, and the quality people were high-fiving each other. So when my son was in the NICU, and this little baby actually got an infection, and I believe it was the Coronabacter, and she had to have portions of her intestine removed, and she was a 2-pound baby. And you watch, and at the time the NICU was one large room, so they didn't have individual rooms. I had to watch these parents say goodbye to their baby that was going to go off and have this surgery. And it's like, I can't imagine people high-fiving because of that. That's kind of how you equate it, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, that's exactly why we do what we do, right? And she survived. Fortunately, she survived and has lived seamlessly throughout the years. But how awful, just putting parents through that. I can't imagine. So.
Well, and I think that's a good analogy and story, because sometimes we forget. We think this is a game, right? Oh, okay, I'm going to get a high score on my audit, and sure, there's some problems, but I'm going to hide those from the inspector who's coming in, and I'm going to make my plant manager happy. No, and we get caught up in kind of our internal bubble, which is part of our theme for the talk here today. Is no, you need to get outside of that bubble. Nothing else matters beyond the consumer. And a lot of times we forget that. And that metric, we need to monitor those things and make sure that we're treating those activities and treating people with respect. And back to the food safety piece of it, having a really, really clear program in place with lots of training for those people who are interacting with the consumer, that if one of those consumers says, not, I found a piece of wood in my can of green beans, but I ate these green beans and I got really, really sick. Oh,
Right.
that needs to be immediately escalated. And whenever I put together procedures and programs in this area, I always make sure that that is crystal clear, is that if there's any even hint of a food safety issue, I need to know about it immediately.
Right. Yeah. And that's absolutely impertinent, right? You have to have those types of escalations.
Right. And so part of this then too is the investigation piece. And depending on trends and how you're looking at things and food safety in particular, you need to have systems in place for getting more information, because consumers are not, to your point, Cara, they're not food safety professionals. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know what the code date means on the side of the package. So you need to also then be able to train the people talking. Number one is, so you contact me as a consumer, Cara, and say, hey, found some freaking wood in my green beans. Oh gosh, well, number one is, don't say this. Oh yeah, we've been seeing that a lot. No,
Yeah.
that response.
Right? Not that we want to hide things, but
No.
just like, let's think about this. Let's use some tact.
Yeah. And it's very important. We know as ourselves, as consumers, that if you're in a restaurant and the meal comes out and it's your steak's cooked wrong or things like that, if you pull over the wait staff and say, hey, I ordered medium rare and this steak is rare. I if they roll their eyes and grab it off the table and go back, and then you hear the chef in the back going, rah, 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 and then the steak comes out and they throw it down on the table in front of you, are you going to go back to that restaurant? No, right? Plus, you're also thinking, did the chef do something to my steak? Do I really want to eat this now?
Exactly.
But high quality, right, which is why we use this word, restaurants and things like that, the wait person is going to be like, oh, Mr. Armentrout, oh, you're right. Does it matter if that person thinks I'm right or not? No. It's like, you're absolutely right. Let me go back to the kitchen immediately and I will bring out your steak right away. In the meantime, is there anything else I can get you? And again, I'm very sorry for this, right? 100%, that slight tweak is imperative. And your teams need to understand that too when they're picking up the phone or reading the email. And we all know with the different modes of communication we have now, it's very easy to fire off a snarky little response in the email. No, you still need to follow the basics of good respect and communication. Well, Ms. Mikkelson, we're very sorry for your experience with our product. We do everything we can in our company to make sure our consumers are 100% satisfied, et cetera, et cetera. And you're going to remember that. Conversely, any bad experience, you're going to remember that a lot more. And your mom over the years, I'm sure, has told the wood and the green bean story to a myriad of people.
Absolutely. No, oh, for sure. Book club. Yes, it is. It has traveled, right? The stories travel. And you're absolutely right in in making sure that your tone, and again, not saying that every single consumer complaint is going to be, pants on fire, oh my gosh, recall or anything like that. Because you were talking before about some people that kind of shopped for the coupons or shopped for the reward. And so you want to, you do need to do your due diligence and vet those out. But having that immediate response of, oh, we're so sorry. Let's take a look. Let's see what we can do to investigate this and make it right. And
your team needs to be trained on how to extract the information as a quality professional that you need. Ms. Mikkelson, very sorry for your experience. Do you still have the beans? Yes, we do. Great. Please don't throw those away. Can you take a picture and send it to me? Yes, I would absolutely love to do that. Next thing I need is this. On the bottom of a can, there's a code that's written on that. Can you read that to me? or can you take a picture?
Yeah.
If it's something that you need, and you need to have decision trees on this as well, you may need to get the sample, which may mean, okay, Ms. Mikkelson, we're going to send you a prepaid FedEx label. Can you please send it back to us, because we want to take a look at this right away, because we take this very seriously. You could, in some situations, have to send people out. And there are companies out there like RQA and other companies. If you have a really serious escalated issue, you can send them out in the field and hire them to do these type of issues and say, okay, I need you to go in the Chicago area to 10 different locations, pick product off the retail shelves, and I need you to go to this consumer and pick up the sample from them. Right? You can get very, very specific on what you need to do. And information at this key is just like everything else in what we do. It's only as good as the data you're able to collect. So you need to make sure that you get really good data in proportion to what you're looking at. Right. So,
Oh yeah, those are great points. That and training to people. And I'm sure you have experienced this too. We go and do a gap assessment or do an audit, and you come home and you're reading through your notes and you're like, shoot, I wish I would have asked that, or darn it, I forgot about this, SOP or this procedure. It's the same thing when gathering information with consumer complaints. And that's why, like you were talking about when you were writing procedures, having those lists to follow, and that really guides you in gathering that information, because it's data, and we need that data to make those decisions.
Right. And the more efficiently, the more professionally you can do that, your reputation is going to go up. Right? Then that conversation can change. So you could then start talking to your friends or your mom and say, yeah, I had this problem, and it was like, really gross, but oh my goodness, did they do an amazing job of responding back to me. They called me, they talked with me. I got a call from the vice president of quality in the company who talked with me and explained what happened. They sent me a bunch of coupons, and okay, I couldn't be happier, right? You'll always have the issue. How you respond to the issue is what's important.
Exactly. And that's really something. And again, I know you've written lots of procedures, and the procedures I've written for these types of things, I try and include a script, or a checklist, so that they have something, and not that they have to use the exact thing, but be able to go through the script and understand and gather that information.
Exactly. And the training piece of it, I'm glad you brought that up, is super important, because if you're a large food company, odds are you don't have the entire staff on site for responding to consumers. There are companies that you can then hire who work with you. And it's actually important to have these set up, because if you do have an escalation issue, you have the resources in place to build out tree banks. And if you have a recall, odds are you need thousands of responses if you have a major issue. So working with the call centers and training them is imperative, and always remembering that that's hard work. Imagine working at a call center and answering complaints from different companies all day. That's brutal. So as a result, they have lots of turnover, which means you have to do lots of training. And so in my past, I had a person who was a regional quality person, and part of her responsibilities was managing the call center. And so she would work with the consumer affairs group and travel down to Texas about once a quarter, sit down with the leaders and the management and the staff and explain to them. And she would bring products and samples so that they knew what they looked like and tasted like. And we really nurtured that relationship, because they were us. They were our outward facing. The consumer doesn't care. They don't know that. In their minds, that is the company. That's White Wave or whoever. That's who it is. And you need to understand that. Because the other side of this coin is just like the Family Dollar example earlier. If you don't respond, or you give a crappy response, are they going to go away? No, they're going to get upset. And if they're a stubborn person or things like that, they're going to escalate. Exactly. And it's very easy. Just do a quick search on food complaint on Google, and up come the websites. And so right at the top of the list is FDA and USDA saying, if you have a complaint, click on this link and let us know about it. And if a consumer is unhappy with your response, or you blow them off, guess what? They're going to go there. They're going to go on social media. They're going, it's the opposite of what you want in good marketing. You want to bring people through and understand your company and get them to the point where they're a fan and an avid supporter of your product, and they're going out there and advocating for you and saying, oh my goodness, this product is amazing, you got to try it. Well, if you flip that pyramid, you turn those people into your worst adversary, because now they're making it their life's goal to get back at you.
For sure. And you're absolutely, and as a consumer, I know I've called places and issued complaints about various things, and just, you were talking about how hard it is. And I, try to be kind to those people too. You got to remember that they're just doing their job. I'm always trying to be like, I understand that you're not the one that did this issue, but you need to know about it, right? This is, and that's, if you are a manufacturer and you're receiving something from a supplier that's of sub quality, you want to issue that complaint, but you also want to make sure that you maintain that relationship, right? So
yeah. Well, and if it goes down to Cortland's point, FDA is always my best buddy for complaints. Yeah, absolutely. So FDA will look for trends. And so if they start seeing 2 or 3 complaints for quality in the same area, food safety, obviously they're going to escalate very quickly, but they may reach out to you out of the blue and say, we've received complaints on your product. And you're like, okay, well, now you start the investigation process, and you ask FDA for information. They're like, nope, it's all redacted. The name's redacted, the location's redacted. And now all of a sudden they show up at your plant and you have no idea it really puts you at a huge disadvantage.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
And remember, FDA doesn't have to stay on scope. They may come into your production facility to investigate 3 complaints for wood in green beans. They go into your plant, and now all of a sudden you got a full-blown FDA inspection because they don't like what they see. You're asking for trouble.
Yep. That is very true. Right. Yep. Very true.
So I think part of this and our role in quality and food safety is, number one, we're a unique group in companies in that we get to kind of stick our nose into all kinds of different stuff, right? We're not the finance group, working on the budget and tracking P&E and whatever. And we're getting into these different areas and controlling and guiding these type of activities. And we get to see the bigger picture relative to these type of things. And my point, Cara, around this is a lot of times in companies, we get caught inside our bubble. And I think it's really important to remember that when you're evaluating products, so if coffee, we'll use our coffee example here, is there's 2 different levels of product evaluation. There's what I call technical and market. And the technical usually gets the attention. So if you're working for a food company and you're in R&D and you're a sensory analyst and you work for a coffee company, wow, those guys are experts. And you see the videos of the little teaspoon things where they'll taste the coffee, and holy moly, the wine industry, the wine sommeliers and the people who this is a taste of boysenberry, and you're like, really? Right. Okay. And technical. Right? They're really into it. And you have your product specifications. What you're doing in these things is you're looking for trends and product development and things like that. But a lot of times companies get caught up in that internally. I've never had a consumer contact me and say, hey, listen, Bryan, this coffee that I made yesterday, too acidic. I think the pH is a little too low. No. They're going to say this coffee tastes like crap. That's what they're going to say. And
this coffee tastes like vinegar. What's the deal?
Yeah. And so we get caught up internally with these type of things. We would do product cuttings in the company I was at in the past, and all the executives would come down to the cuttings for the cheese, and we'd have brie and all these wonderful cheeses. And then the leadership team would taste the cheese and nom, nom, nom. And then the CEO of the company would go, this is good. And then they move on to the next one. He'd say, I'm not too sure about this one. They move on. And then everybody goes, yeah, okay, yeah, right. He's the CEO. And I would just get mad listening to this, because I'm like, I don't give a crap what you think. Your opinion is anecdotal. We are not selling this product to CEOs. What does the consumer care? We need to figure out what the consumer wants in this product, not you. And I talked with him about that, but he didn't understand, right? Because he was influencing things in a direction that I didn't like. Gotcha. And sometimes you have to be diplomatic about these things, of course, right? Because if you're a quality person who's rah, 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 you're going to find yourself pretty isolated pretty quickly. So don't do that.
Right.
The other side of this equation, which in my opinion is what we're talking about here and kind of the central theme, Cara, for today's talk, is the consumer piece. That's the important piece. What does the consumer care about? Not what marketing cares about, not what the focus groups care about, which is an attempt to get to the consumer. But even those are slanted because number one, you're paying them, they're obligated. And if you ask people in consumer study groups and things like that, hey, did you like this new product? People are nice. Oh, yes, this is a very nice product. I like this product. And then you ask them if they would buy it, and you may see a little bit of, right?
Right.
You need to get to that. It's if kind of the joke in these type of sensory analysis type things is if you set these up and then you do the evaluation, you say, hey, Cara, do you like this product? Oh, yes, this is an amazing product. I love it. It's great. How much would you pay for this product? Oh, I don't like $5 probably. Okay, great. Can I have $5?
Right.
What? Well, if you like it so much, buy it. I will sell you this sample right now for $5. Oh, well, I don't like it that much. Right. Mm-hmm. Now you're getting to the heart of it, right? So don't fool yourself. These internal things can really fool yourself.
Yeah.
I work with a beverage company. I'm sorry, I'm on.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I work with a beverage company, and we have found out that there are two key leading attributes that the consumers absolutely care about in the product, and that's the taste and the texture of the product. They're not talking viscosity. They're not talking levels of acetyl or things like that, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Taste and texture. So I constantly, when I work with them, I beat that in their heads. And I look at the consumer complaints. I'm like, we have to make sure that the taste and texture of this product is always maintained, because if we don't, we're not in business, right? So bam, bam, bam. And making sure that the R&D guys understand that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I had one kind of unique experience with this with a company that I was working with. And what they were doing was they were marketing a product to children. And this is where you think about like technical. They were so on with the technical. And what it was a yogurt. And then they had a powder, and you dump the powder into the yogurt and it would change colors. So it was meant for kids, and the powder was like, fun and all that kind of stuff. They went through a year of development. And they got to where they did a sensory panel with children and with their parents. And when the kids opened the powder, first of all, the powder just went everywhere. And they ended up, the powder was blue initially. Kids were covered in blue, and the parents were like, what do we do? No, we will never buy this product ever. And again, here we were, it's like, oh, it's safe. It, has the right texture. It has the right color. And when you swirl it, it goes from blue to green to, yada, yada. And it's like, but we can't turn kids blue. And it crashed and burned right there. So, sometimes thinking about those extra little, and again, that wouldn't have been necessarily a recall, but you can darn well believe that parents would be calling being like, how am I supposed to get this blue out of my kid's shirt?
I could just see a little boy putting some of this blue stuff into a straw and then going up to his sister and going,
oh, for sure. Absolutely. It was, and I felt so bad for the product developer that had spent, a year developing this product. And then it was like, it was literally like, that's it.
I worked with a really good project manager, and he would have a saying that it's more important to have product development projects in place that quickly kill projects. That's what you want to do. You want to figure out which ones to kill, because that's part of the problem in companies, right? Is a lot of times these projects make it to it should have never even made it to that stage, right? Because the farther you go through that design process, the more it costs. And so as you're telling that story, which is hilarious, I picture the R&D technician in his white lab coat in the lab, and he's got his Mettler scale, and he's weighing it, and he's carefully mixed, right? To have that all blown up by a 5-year-old.
Yep, by a 5-year-old that turned blue. It was quite. I never forget that story, because I'm like, Wow, that was an exercise in, not much coming out of that. So
Yeah, it's like Austin's saying here is critical thinking is not a strong suit for many people, right? Because they're thinking of it this way. My job in R&D is to develop this product, and I'm going to do my little chunk. And then that moves on to the food safety people who say, oh, okay, I'm going to evaluate the suppliers and make sure that they're safe and that the plant knows how to make this product correctly. And all along through all these different stages and handoffs, people aren't paying attention to the big picture. And that's part of why we're important in quality is we're part of the big picture.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And that's what you have to, and I know I get very tunnel visioned a lot of times with food safety, right? And rightfully so. That's my wheelhouse. That's where I live. But sometimes you have to think about the big picture. And it's like we were talking about earlier, where, you don't want people to cut corners. You want people to do the right thing. But I also understand that you're pressed for time, and especially I mostly work in sanitation. Many times it's like, okay, here's a whole facility, clean it in 2 hours. I get it. I do understand that there are those constraints, but you still have to think about the consumer, right? And the customers and think about their safety. And is it the right, is it the high-fiving over good results when you don't have good results? Could result in that little baby, losing portions of the intestine. I mean, that's where I go. That's 100% where I go. So.
Cortland had a good section. So design FEMA, right? So failure mode effects analysis. And Austin is iterating this as well, which is doing a pre-mortem, right? We always talk about post-mortem, what went wrong, but this is like what could go wrong, which is a really, really good point. Looking at these things and saying what can go wrong with these type of activities. This reminded me of a funny story. What Cortland and Austin are talking about is at a past company, we had a new product aimed at kids. It was a neat little cheese product in these little packets. It's good to have kids eat cheese, lots of calcium and good stuff for the kids. And the plant was on the West Coast, and the company headquarters was Northeast, and that's where I was. And we got samples from the plant, and the line had a brand new fancy thermal date code printer that we used for the product. If you work in the food industry, you know that inkjet printers have been around a long time. You've got a few lines of code, and they sometimes work okay, and you got to make sure they're clean, and it's got to have a nice flat surface and all the problems you have with. But when these new coders came along with this thermal, oh man, they were awesome, right? Perfectly cool code. You had multiple lines of information you could put on there. So as a quality people were like, oh, awesome. Okay, I want Best Buy, I want line, I want time, I want every little piece of information we can jam into that code so that if there's an issue, I can trace it back pretty quickly. Well, the plant looked at this space, and there was some extra space, and they were being creative. And they said, let's take some pride in our product, and let's put the name of the operator packaged by and that person's first name. I was like, and they did this all on their own. They didn't let anybody at corporate know. Mistake one. And they produced this product, and they sent samples to headquarters, and we start opening them up with marketing, and we're looking at them and everything. And then all of a sudden marketing gets really angry, the head of marketing, and he throws it down, and he's like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, what's wrong? And I pick it up and look at it, and he's like, somebody thinks they're funny, packaged by Jesus. What the hell does it? He starts yelling. And I started going, oh, no, that's the operator's name, packaged by Jesus. And he's like, that's not what it said. And you would not believe the firestorm that created in the company. And so now all of a sudden the plant, right, all new directives come down from corporate. You're not allowed to change anything, right? And just this all over that little misunderstanding because the plant didn't sit back and think about it and go, how could this be misinterpreted to Austin's point?
Yeah. Oh, and poor Jesus, you just wanted to get some credit, some street cred. And oh man.
He was doing a good job.
Yeah, he did an awesome job. Oh, that
Oh,
I mean, and I do actually love that you did, because I love giving people credit for what they do because they work so hard.
right, well, and this is and a little plug here for Austin is this is what we do as people is we tell stories to
Yes,
illustrate points, right? It makes it more engaging. You don't want to, right? What we don't do on this chat is I don't pull up a GFSI code and say, oh, well, according to 2.1.7.2, right? You shall do this and you shall do that. No, that's the starting point. But how do you actually execute against that? And stories help to explain these principles. And it's really, really important to have those. And so,
and I love story. I mean, if anybody's ever taken any trainings with me, and I love to hear stories. Like that story is amazing, and just what a learning, and,
yeah, and
think about that customer complaint line. that would have been probably really really interesting, right?
yeah,
So,
absolutely. Oh, and part of this too, this gets into that pre-mortem piece of it too, is communications and how you're presenting your company and what messaging you have for your company. We recently saw a story where the CEO of Kellogg's is just getting absolutely excoriated. He went on TV and he thought it was a good idea to say, the newscaster was like, well, Mr. CEO, people are having a hard time, with inflation and making ends meet and these type of things. And he thought it was a good idea to say, well, people can eat our cereal for dinner. That'd be really amazing. And boy, was that tone deaf.
yeah.
Oh, and so, did people react to that? Right.
Yeah, yeah. And in his defense, my kids used to love cereal for dinner, and I loved it too because it was just an easy dinner, right?
Right. Yeah.
But come on. Like, no, 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 no. Very,
Right.
very, like
That's
you said, just tone deaf, right?
it's a major U.S. corporation, highly sophisticated, amazing people that work there. And somebody should have said, "Oh, Mr. CEO, that may I love our products too.
Right,
That message may be misconstrued."
right,
Uh,
right.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
like there's a better way to steer that that message. So yeah,
so you need to, and this is kind of what we're talking about through all these type of things, right? It's this feedback process, this back and forth. You always need to be communicating with your consumer and
yes.
making sure that you understand. I used to have, and I've used this example before, but I have yet to find anything that's better. And with modern technology, I found better ways to institute it. But boy, this is a golden situation. So I worked for a previous company, and the head of quality for the world came and sat down with me for a week and trained me personally of how to manage complaints for this company. And it was one of the most valuable during that conversation. And he talked about the consumer, and we had this questionnaire that we would put in the brie. And this questionnaire was only quality. And it was the short little thing, had maybe 10 questions. Nothing on there for marketing, nothing on there that could be misconstrued. We didn't even offer to compensate. So people would open the box, and we would do this occasionally, and we would do this to get the response rate that we wanted, and we would get about a 5% response rate, which was crazy good.
Mm-hmm.
And people had to actually fill out this questionnaire, and at the time, mail it back to us. All these things are online now, right? Which is,
right. Which 5% for mailing back is amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
And so we knew, number one, that this is somebody who actually bought that brie. We knew that they cared because they took the time to fill out a questionnaire with no motive. We didn't offer hey, fill this out for $5. Fill this out and we'll send you a coupon. No, none of that. We sent them a coupon afterwards, but it was completely voluntary. And all the questions were quality. Marketing tried to sneak stuff in. No, right? They got shot down immediately. And it would be like, okay, when did you buy this cheese? And they would write the date. Turn over the bottom of the box. What's the date on the bottom? And then they would write that down. And they would answer a question. The questions were always three. It was like, is the color of this brie right? So you have the penicillium on the outside of the brie, right? That nice, pretty white coating on the cheese. And we would say, okay, is that white color on the outside, is that just right? Too brown or too white? Right? We would always do it like that.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah.
do they care? Does the consumer care that's penicillium? Well, they probably ask more questions about, oh my God, I'm eating penicillin. No, you're not. We're just caring about their perception. Do you like the color of the cheese? Does it look good to you? That's what matters. That's what
Right.
matters.
Yep.
And they would answer these questions. And then we had a hedonic scale at the end. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how do you rate this product? And then a verbatim. So the date code piece, that was so important because I knew now the date of production and I knew how long it took to get to market. And I knew the age of consumption for that cheese. So I knew how old it was in the shelf life because brie, right? Very fragile cheese.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And, normally if you're pushing it on brie, you're getting maybe 70, 75 days. And I would get that information back. And now I could correlate in the consumer's mind, what were the most important attributes of that cheese? The color of the cheese, the taste of the cheese, the texture of the cheese, the questions that we were asking on there, and their score. So now I had these beautiful graphs that would show the average score for the cheese. And then once it got to about 65, 70 days of age, that score on that cheese would just drop off a cliff. So people were giving it, 4.8 out of 5, and then you would see it kind of move around a little bit. But once it got to that end of code period, right, the cheese is getting old, it's ammoniated, it's hard, it's getting brown, right? It would drop, and the score would go down to 2 at the end of shelf life. And it's like, from my viewpoint, perfect. That's we want the shelf life, and we'll back it up a little bit to make sure that the consumers aren't getting that bad experience.
Exactly. No, that's great. And what great learnings. And like you can take that and move that to your production, to your process, to your procedures. Absolutely.
Right. So now I knew, so okay, R&D, the number one thing that our consumers care about on our brie is the color of the rind. It needs to be super, super white and pretty. Make sure that we have a product that does that.
Right.
Number 2 is that average age of consumption in the marketplace. So if the sales team came to me and this happened and said, hey, Bryan, we're getting a lot of out of codes and write-offs on the retail side of things for expired brie. Can we have 5 more days of shelf life? Because that would really be awesome and we would cut our losses and these type of things. What would I do? Hey, sales guy, look at this chart.
Hold on. Yeah.
No, you cannot have 5 more days. Maybe R&D can reformulate to give a little more shelf life, but based on what we know, absolutely not.
Right.
And the best part to close out this story, and I apologize, it's a long story, but I think it's very relevant.
It's great. I love it.
Is I would then have those verbatims from all those questionnaires typed up, and I would post them in the plants.
I love that. It's like storytelling, right? It's like storytelling.
Right, and it's a motivator for the team. And so we would post those once a month and we would put them outside of the employee break room. And when we would post those, people, it'd be like you see these movies where people are going for a part in the play or, everybody gathers around the board to kind of see who got the role. Same thing. People would gather around and they would ask me if I was late on getting that posted. Oh, I heard about it. But it was good information. It was people saying, oh my goodness, I love your cheese. You guys make the best cheese. We always serve this for our Christmas and our family. And people would, they were
pride in work, right? Proud. Yeah. And that's awesome. I love that. I think that is because people like to hear that they're doing a good job. Just like you said at the beginning of the talk, we're so proud of you because you're doing such a great job. People want to hear that. And it's part of the food safety culture, right? It's part of the food safety culture. So gathering that information is wow, that's impactful. That brings it right back to the bottom line.
So part of this, right, is you need to understand how does your company communicate with the market, right? So this, I'm a really old dude who's been around a long time example, right, is old school, but the technique is correct. You need to figure out, how do I get outside of my bubble? And how do I get this information? And you want to get this information as real time as possible. Because one of the gripes that I always talk about with my quality teams to make sure that we do is quality reports are nice, but they're always backwards looking, right? You're looking at information from the last month. Number one, everybody should know this already. If they don't, you're not doing a good job of getting information out there. And it's for trend analysis. Okay, are complaints going up? Are they going down? What type of key things are we seeing? You're using this information for the future to put in preventive activities, and that's the important thing. So nowadays, we are blessed with all kinds of new technologies and ways of communicating with consumers. So how does your company do that? Most companies now have social media people, right? And they're on Facebook or whatever, talking with consumers and answering complaints and things like that real time. How are you getting that feedback? How do you understand that? So food safety, food quality, escalation, all those type of things. How is that being activated in your systems?
Mm-hmm. And communication, right? Communication internally, not only understanding what your consumers and your customers want, but internally, what's the communication? So that's another important, and training, right? We always go back to training and understanding, the expectations. So.
And you may be in an industry where all of a sudden now you're being targeted because there are activist groups out there who don't like certain things and they're out there pushing agendas, and you need to be aware of that and monitor that. You also need to, right? This is again, quality food safety. We're looking at big picture stuff. What trends are out there? What type of issues are going on? So we're seeing right now in the marketplace cinnamon. Oh, cinnamon, right? So FDA saw what happened with infant formula, right? They got slapped around quite a bit on that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, okay, we're not going to do that again.
Let's not repeat, right?
Yeah. This applesauce issue hit. It's in products for children, and it's big, right? Massive amounts of lead contamination. FDA took an action this week that I thought I've never really seen them do publicly, is they went out and actually proactively started sampling cinnamon in the marketplace. And they wrote a letter to all of the cinnamon manufacturers, distributors, brokers, anybody who touches cinnamon, saying, hey, you guys need to look at this. There's a problem. Of the 75 samples that they listed in this letter, 15 had levels above 2 parts per million. And they told those companies in this letter publicly, you need to recall these. We are recommending that you recall these products immediately. Wow. So what does this tell you from a bigger picture? Is consumer perception. Moms out there with small children know this is going on. Mm-hmm. They don't care if you have, let's say you read this as a quality professional and you put in these super robust programs for testing your cinnamon. We're going to test every single lot. We're going to make sure that there's no lead, and we're going to put out our cinnamon product. Does that mom care? No. So in that mom's mind, when she sees all of this public outcry around applesauce and contaminated cinnamon, in that mom's mind, or dad, whoever's doing the grocery purchasing, cinnamon, bad. I am not giving my young, sweet little child anything with cinnamon. Okay? You need to understand that.
Yeah. And make sure that you're taking action before FDA or your consumers do, right? Take that action prior. Understand, like you were saying, understand the trends, understand what's going on in your space, so that you can be proactive. Absolutely.
Yep, like Cortland's saying here as well. Great comments, by the way, guys. Thank you very much. Remember, FDA is doing this too, right? If you're not, they're doing it for you. And if they're ahead of the curve, they're going to let you know. You need to do that, right? So I think that kind of, as we bring this back to the 30,000 foot level, Cara, is when you're working in the field that we work in with food safety and quality and things like this, proactive information is much more valuable than reactive information. And we tend to live in the reactive because it's closed and we know what to do. Reactive is easy. Proactive is hard, right?
Yes.
And that's why I think a lot of companies struggle with preventive actions versus corrective actions. You, as the quality person, you need to be looking at these and having things and saying, hey, senior leadership team, here's our complaints. Woo, going up. Not good. Not good. We need to bring this back down. We're not at critical yet. Your job is to be that canary in the coal mine and saying, oh, we got a problem coming. We need to cut this off.
Yep. Right? Yeah. That's a great way to put it, right? Proactive. understand the trends, understand internal, external trending and expectations.
Yep, absolutely. Any other closing thoughts? Because we're out of time already.
No, we're already out of time. I can't believe it. Our talks go so fast, Bryan. I can't believe it. No, it's fun. Thank you, everybody, for joining. That's awesome. Yeah, great.
And any complaints for the food safety chat, feel free to leave them in there, and I will respond to your complaints in a proactive manner.
In a timely and proactive manner. Yeah, make sure you complain to Bryan, not to me.
And I promise not to block you. So with that, so Cara, as always, thank you. An amazing chat, and thank you to all of our guests. Great to see you. So Jill, as I see, is back from SQF. So guys, you did a great job this week. All kinds of fantastic work out there. It's the weekend. Go out and enjoy yourself. Have a little bit of fun. And we'll do it all again next week. And so join us back here next Friday for the next food safety chat. We're live streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. And of course, at this time, so 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, wherever you're at in the world. And I will have another amazing guest on, just like Cara. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy. Thank you, Cara. And have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.